G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Stalks Stuff. I'm bringing you unbiased, unfiltered news from the Ukraine war. And today, of course, no exception, the propaganda, the cope, and the politics is thick. The mainstream media beating the war drum. Zelensky beating the same old tired talking points into the ground. And nothing is being achieved because not one, not two, not three, but definitely a handful of countries are so hell-bent on destruction, primarily UK, France, and Germany. They're so hell-bent on destruction, their own pride, and driven by hubris, they refuse to see Zelensky for what he is, because in reality, I suspect he is one of them. A nauseating, globalist, destructive, selfish glutton. A pig who feeds off the public purse. What a coincidence that the Ukraine president, after bleating for more air defenses and more money and more sanctions on Russia, drones fly over Romania. A drone flies over Romania, gets spotted and flies back into Ukraine and somehow magically disappears. What we know? We know we can't trust The Guardian, and now we know we can't trust Romania. Zelensky, of course, accusing Moscow of an obvious, everybody, it's obvious. Well, it's so obvious that it would be us telling you, not you telling us. They call it a preventative measure. Do not wait, says the Ukrainian president, rattling the saber. And of course, acting in a belligerent one-way message system where he's right and everybody else is wrong. And the majority out there lapping it up is disgusting. You have learnt nothing in the last few years and will continue to pay the price of the lies from the left, the lies from the Ukrainians, the lies from the socialists in France, the lies from the socialists in Germany, and lies from the socialists in the UK. America, do you really think Democrats are the only liars in the world? Now, Russia's attack on Ukraine continues because Zelensky refuses to settle this dispute. He thinks that he can push Russia out of Ukraine. All he wants is more time and more money. How often have we heard that before? More time, more money. But they never tell you the truth. That it's just he is killing more people so that they can bring in more refugees after the war. And they're really not refugees, of course. They're colonizers from India and Africa and the Middle East to permanently destroy Europe. Because Zelensky's not a European. Starmer's wife. Look at how many Indians in the British Parliament. Look at how many North Africans in France. All from countries with independence days. Yet none of them independent from us. They're totally dependent on us. And they colonise our land saying that they're just refugees. While complaining about Europeans as colonisers. And so many in Europe are bought into this garbage politics. And this garbage politics from the left is destroying Europe. But they are just so panicked about their so-called safety that they cannot see that Ukraine is the one threatening their safety. But they're not the only ones. China is behind this. China and India China primarily has somehow magically forgotten all its promises and its debts to Ukraine. The Beijing, as a neutral mediator, they backed Ukraine into a corner when the Soviet Union broke up, and they got Ukraine to give up its weapons. Ukraine and previous presidents used to meet regularly until Zelensky, and since the Donbass uprising, she's done nothing but wait with open arms as Europe pushes Russia into Russia's open arms. Now, obviously, there's politics behind this, and behind the scenes, they're making all these promises to Trump that, make Russia's a problem state, let them be China's problem. Russia will be an albatross. China will eventually betray and invade Russia, and we can go in and be the saviors of Russia. But what about Ukraine? We can contain Ukrainians. Yeah. See, even Zelensky himself, when running for president, said Ukrainians make promises they cannot keep and rack up debts they never intend to pay. He promised hope and change. We've heard that song and dance act before, right, folks? These comments from China are largely rhetorical. None of them have translated into concrete guarantees for Ukraine, or, since 2024, Ukraine has attempted to remind China of its assurances in the United Nations, and instead China meets them with the middle finger, blocks them in the Security Council. But folks, you also got to be reminded, China has also blocked Russia in the Security Council. China has stopped resolutions to end this war. Diplomacy. They both, Russia and Ukraine exchange maps, and it's the same thing. Zelensky wants a pure map, and Putin says, now, I think, honestly, Putin may be asking for too much. But Zelensky is not negotiating anything. He's stalling for time, hoping that either China will betray Russia, or India will come to their aid with more arms, or that Europe will send arms and troops, or that Israel will magically create this new army out of nowhere. Well, Israel's bogged down by its own situation, and the Israeli army, they're not as fighting fit as you realise. They're good at short-term, low-intense engagements, but they will not be able to fight a sustained war in Ukraine. They don't speak the language. They have their own weapons and logistics to think of. And back home, every man and his dog will exploit 100,000 missing Israelis. And what are you going to do? Recruit Israelis from around the world? Ukraine opened the door and has offered contracts. Every year they fell short. Every year they fall short of their recruiting numbers. If this was a high-intensity war, it would be over. Ukraine would be over. Gone. Yes, there would be a bad fight. The war wouldn't be over, but Ukraine would be gone. Okay? There would be an intense battle across 1,600 miles of a massive front line, slowly decaying. A war Russia could lose if it was higher intensity, if Europe got involved, particularly Europe, or just Poland and Eastern Europe fighting with Ukraine. with Israel, even with or without Israel. It doesn't matter. Many experts will probably agree that perhaps if there was, I would agree, Trump is right, a freeze on the front line is the only solution. And every day that neither party comes to the table and signs the agreement is another day that thousands die. And it's becoming unacceptable. People are deliberately thumbing their nose. Europe, Russia, people in Russia. Now, I don't know where this drone came from. If it was a Russian drone, they just said it's a Shia type. You're telling me that Ukraine can't fake a Russian drone and don't have enough captured Russian drones that they can't send one into Poland, watch for scrambled aircraft and then fly it back into and crash it in and have it explode inside Ukraine? It's a Russian-made drone, but under Ukrainian control. Or was it jammed? We've heard all about this so-called GPS jamming. We've seen them attempt to jam drones before, and successfully so, particularly over long ranges. Once the further the drones get from Russia, the more susceptible to drone jamming, which is why most of the attacks in Western Ukraine have not been drones, but missiles. Because once they start falling, they don't need guidance. So Russia's missiles aren't as accurate as Russia hopes, and they are desperately trying to improve that. They are making headways, and they are... most of their drones are limited in very limited. Most of the shared types are like extremely short range. I don't know where they get this 700-mile range from. Maybe somewhere there is a Russian drone with a large range, but it would be a large drone. At least half the size of a... look at the Global Hawk. It's not a small. It's half the size of a jet, but don't forget, it's not packing as much heavy equipment as a jet. Or a pilot. And it's not as fast. It's not carrying as much fuel because it's not as fast as a jet. Now, railways have been hit overnight because Zelensky complains about Russia attacking infrastructure, but railways are how they move troops, not how they move people. Ukraine doesn't have civilian railway anymore. Okay? Most of these towns are locked out of civilian movement. Now, as we go around the front, we have renewed fighting, which occurs almost every day, with some changes to the buffer zone here in Sumny. Nothing here in the north, where there is renewed fighting. And although it does look like there might be expansion of the buffer zone here, but it looks like fighting is intensified in Kupiansk, though Russian incursion, again, is still only assault forces, so it's mostly hit and run. Fighting still continues north of Lyman, not as intensely reported. Same with Seversk. Not a lot of fighting between Seversk and Chasiv Yar reported. Now, this fortress is apparently about 260,000. So it is massive. Okay, it's a massive line of Ukrainian troops and artillery and tanks. And, of course, long-range rocketry supplied by Poland, most of which comes in by light rail and trucks to Kiev, where trucks take it through the country, spread out over vast distances. Often truck stops are hit with missile strikes in Dnipro, though often these are only empty trucks being refueled. Russia takes the targets of opportunity, though. I mean, a truck is still a truck, right? You may not get the ammunition, but it delays. Every truck is a delay. But Ukraine, of course, is, and this is one of the reasons why Russia is, the war is still going on, because Russia hasn't been able to grind down Ukraine as fast as it expected. But sooner or later, this. But of course, this comes at the sacrifice of manufacturing tanks and artillery. So in the long term, it may actually have a negative effect. European economy is unstable right now, which is why Russia is feeling so hopeful. They hope the French economy and followed by the British will collapse, either the British or the Germans. Of course, Poland is worried because they'll start to feel the pressure. Now, we go around the battlefield. There is only changes to the outlines, but nothing really substantial. Though Russia has gained some ground here, not much. Nothing here. Some here. Only most of the little bit up here, and that's about it. Though I expect with the renewed fighting that, some here as well, but I expected with the renewed fighting that maybe they would have made advances here as well, but not much. But if Russia underperforms again and again, maybe that will actually be a sign for Putin to agree to freezing the front. Zelensky will want the front frozen because he'll want a breathing room to rearm, which is probably why Putin won't freeze the front, without guarantees that Zelensky just won't rearm and attack them 6 weeks later, like they did last 2 times, sorry. But of course, most of the people out there just continue to prattle on about Putin and forget that this war takes 2 sides. And Poland's not ready to even talk to Russia. So how can there be negotiations if Poland isn't talking to Russia? NATO all NATO cares about is more as America sends them more aircraft, more air defenses, and more money. And of course, more sanctions. Of course, they hold military drills. Yay, we can hold parades, comrade! We can hold parades. Look at us perform. Look at us trained monkeys run around the battlefield go, ooh, 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 ooh. And what do you achieve? Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, lots of noise, nothing. Russia ain't impressed with your battlefield drills, okay? Yeah, you're very good choreographed actresses. Now we go around the battlefield. As you can see, there are drone strikes outside of the battlefield, but a lot of it's in the north. And, of course, most of this doesn't make the American media. But, of course, as you can see, nothing on Crimea. They're focused on Donetsk. They're obsessed with punishing the people of Donetsk for daring to not obey Zelensky. Russia has responded, of course, with its own strikes. One of the things is this gives you a clear battlefield line. Both are highly accurate most of the time. Most of them match each other most of the time. Ukrainians use Ukrainian names, the Russians use Russian names. Now, there are only a few areas where they disagree, and it's not by much. Ukraine has overestimated, but there are positions where Russia struck deep into Ukraine and then backed off. Here they've destroyed transports headed south. Machinery and transports headed to Savosk. Into here as well, through Polovgrad. Now, it's clear. Let's look at, here's Krasny Lyman. Here, it actually has Russia overtaken this town. Different from the Ukrainian map. But this gives you an idea, right? This is Lyman. They're here at the top end of the Zelensky line. The fortresses technically start here. These four towns are known as the Fortress Belt. This is the second Zelensky line. The first line, of course, most of it's gone except for Sovetsk. The third Zelensky line here, which isn't even marked on the map, through here, of course, is half gone. Half of it's gone. We'll go to this map and show. This map shows you the second line, right? So these are just the tail end, but it's these are the most important. These three are secondary. This is like secondary. Lyman's just about. Lyman is on the Zelensky line, as you can see. The road curves up and straight into Lyman. Sort of does have a few satellites behind it through here. But here's the important part, and I'll go back to this map. It shows it easier. It's not as cluttered. What did the Russian army go for Lyman? Well, of course, they are going to Cauldron and probably contain it. But what did they siege? One of the most important... they siege here and cut these towns off. This now puts this road that forces a lot of... as you can see, there's no major road. They have to... And the way it is... So it radiates from Kharkiv. So they can't pivot from here quickly to here. Kharkiv has to supply down here. This is the problem with radiating spider webs, is they don't have crossroads. Okay, they took a lot of them out. Well, actually they do, but they're thinner goat tracks. Okay, and it's south of Iziumen. For north, they have to go back up to here. Again, this is the problem with their radiating fortress mentality. That they have a fortress with its satellites at Savask, Polograd, Rudononsky, Denoska. Russians could cut it off just by pushing through here and pushing through here. They'll cut Donetsk off. And they could go all the way to Polovgrad, leaving just this gap. Leaving the Ukrainian army slowly trying to now fight a desperate, so pivoting to a desperate line, trying to stitch together a line through here, through here and through here, having to give up a lot of this. And then Russia might do a peace deal, and because Ukraine will be cut off, Ukrainians will be suffering huge internal displacement. I think this is why Putin may be stalling. And let's face facts, both sides are stalling right now. Trump has put his foot down for the third time. I think if it wasn't for the Charlie Kirk situation, I believe we'd hear an announcement today. Particularly with the fact that Europe hasn't shown up for meetings, though they have shown up, allegedly shown up in Brussels, but they haven't shown up in Washington, or gone to Moscow for meetings. They are delaying. Everybody's delaying, and everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else. And I think Trump is sooner or later going to have to slap Larry, Curly and Moe and tell them to get out of his way. They're threatening the European alliance. And this is the problem, isn't it? The alliance wants to control the United States, saying, you're one vote, we're 3 votes. Where Trump is looking at it saying, no, you're 1 vote, and you're Europe, you're 1 vote, I'm the United States, I'm 1 vote. And since I pay the bills, and you don't pay, you only pay a small percent of the bills each, my vote's bigger than your vote. Europe is a mess of its own making. Russia is in a mess of Europe's making. Partly its own making, but after the fall of communism, we were supposed to put our arms around the Russians, forgive them, and move on. However, Lindsey Graham, Hillary Clinton, Mitch McConnell, and many others in Europe, some of whom were only children at the time, like Keir Starmer, haven't and never will forgive. Because the left doesn't forgive, they destroy. It's not enough for them win their enemies' love. No, they have to make sure their enemies can never threaten them again. There's no forgiveness. They are not Christians. It's just a word to them. Something they can use to manipulate you. But sooner or later, and you can see clearly, right, converging on this point. Sooner or later, we'll know whether they're headed here or here. Depends how soon they reach here, how soon they reach here, and what Ukraine has waiting for them on this road. Okay, they're going to have some watch on and reserves moving backwards and forwards along these lines all the time. Trucks, men and machines. The trucks being, of course, machines, I know that, but by machines, I mean machines of war. Trucks aren't technically machines of war. They'll be carrying men and primarily water. Now, again, this is what we see here is a backfill. Okay, Russia's taken more territory according to its own maps here than it's shown on the Ukrainian side. But eventually, I think, just like they come through here, cut this off, straight through Zaporozhye, cut this off. Ukraine will be in a panic. And I think that's the point, isn't it? If they can create a Ukrainian panic, you can see on the maps how it radiates. Right? come through here, and come through here. And as they do, Ukrainians here, they can't retreat to here. They'll have to retreat to here. They'll have to give up maybe this for this. Try to form a line. Where can they form a line? There's no the major roads are small. Here, all the major roads are supply lines to this front. But if they go over or through this, which they will be trying to stop, but if they go under, and they're still able to cut off and destroy, they can slow it down. That will severely hamper See, the Russian strategy originally was considered that they'll capture line minutes and just siege this and then this line. Come down this line and while they go up this line. But now, this push is pushing the possibility that they'll capture this area and come down over here, cutting all this off. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have battles above with a line of Ukrainians in here with Odessa, the only way in or out. Eventually, of course, falling. Because once Odessa falls, Ukraine's landlocked and finished as a country. And Putin has actually stated that he was willing to trade the Mykolaiv and Odessa for the 1, 2, 3 and set a permanent treaty. Zelensky rejected that. He wanted a maximist approach to Russia withdraw from everywhere before he'll talk. And yet nobody from the American president down on the American side or the European side will report this. And if this doesn't become widely known, it'll soon disappear in the noise as more and more people seem to be listening to Zelensky and he's bleating because what is it with the right that doesn't learn the most fundamental lesson? You cannot trust the left ever. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please support the channel. Please support me on Patreon. Please support me by buying my books and buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, which you can find in the description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.